This is a short recording of the Orion AGC Macro program version 2. As you can see, I just started the program. It's not connected to the Orion. The way how to recognize that is by having all the buttons are grayed out, confirming it's not connected. As well, the disconnect button is basically grayed out and the connect button is available. The first thing you do, you click on the window to select your COM port, in my case COM port 1. I only have one. If you would have multiple, the list would be bigger. And then you click on connect. And now what you can see at that moment is that first of all the buttons in the toolbar become available, as well the buttons and the sliders below that. If you look at the main window, there are two sliders. The top slider is about threshold. The bottom slider is about the RF gain. And then there are so-called macro buttons representing the S-meter values, S2, S3, etc. There is no difference between the buttons at the top and the bottom. They are basically representing the same. However, they are connected to their slider bars. So the bottom buttons are connected to the RF gain. The top buttons are connected to the threshold. The way how it works is that by default the program will make an association between threshold and RF gain, and it will link it like that. And you can see here there is a little select button. It's selected by default, and there's a connector line between threshold and RF gain, which confirms for the user that when you click on one of the buttons, the appropriate button on the other side of the RF gain, for example, will follow. So let me give you an example. I push on S2. And then what you can see then at that moment, first of all, the program will indicate which button you pressed by making it red color. As well, the RF gain will follow that with the same value as S2. So if I click on S5, you will see now that both the sliders will match the S5 version, and at 7 it will just follow like that. Now, providing that the AGC profile has the correct settings for RF gain and threshold, this allows you to do a very quick adjustment of the AGC system as well the RF gain chain. Of course, there's freedom that you can actually use the slider itself independently of the buttons. You can move it up and down like I'm doing here. So I can put it somewhere in between S4 and S5. And then of course RF gain will just stay there. It's not connected anymore. And the same for RF gain. Now what I also can do, I can also disconnect threshold and RF gain by unselecting this button. You see that at that moment the line here becomes nearly visible. And then at that moment, if I push, for example, on the threshold S3 value, and I would push on the RF gain S6 value, you can see at that moment that the buttons are strictly related to the slider bar they belong to, and they work independently from each other. And some users like this, and some users basically need that as an option. Now what you also can see at this moment is that the range of the slider bars is not 100%. So if I move the slider bar of RF gain to the minimum, for the given profile, the minimum value is 59%. The highest value is 100%. Now in case you want to actually go with the slider to, for example, 20%, this slider window will not allow you. To fix that, you can click on the option in the menu bar called Full, and then at that moment the slider bar will redraw itself to make the complete range available. So now on the RF gain 100%, if I move to the left it becomes 0%. And the same for the threshold. The bottom basically means 0. To be honest, it's 0.37 microvolts, but anyway, that's irrelevant. And then the top level is 100. I know that in the Orion you can go up to 192, but I think that's pretty useless to have anyway. And I found it too complex to program. Anyway, what you can see right now is that the S-meter buttons are very compact. They are very near to each other. They are sometimes overlapping, like you can see in threshold. And hence the zoom function where the scale will be stretched and it will be much more visible and usable for the general operator. The other function you can click is something called rig buttons. And with rig buttons, basically it allows you to choose between the AGC mode buttons, for example prog, fast, medium and slow, as well the attenuation and the preamp. The moment I click on fast, medium or slow, let me do that, at that moment the button will basically be looking or checking the values over here, the return to default values. And in this case, if I push fast, it will reset RF gain to 100, attenuation to 0 dB, and threshold to the 3 microvolts or 1 microvolts as being specified in the profile. If you want to basically not reset the RF gain, you just unselect the button, and then next time you move from proc to fast, the RF gain will basically be inherited from the proc mode. You can also see right now is that the attenuation buttons are grayed out, they're not available. And in order to change the attenuation, you have to go to the proc mode first. And then you can basically select any of the attenuation buttons to be used for the proc mode. Now what this allows you to do is it allows you to tweak the proc mode as much as you like with attenuation, with the preamp on and off. You can change the threshold, the RF gain, and then if you want